Okay, so on today's episode, we're going to be looking at age limits when applying for a bond. Is there one? How do the banks view that? And can I still get a bond at the age of 70? This is a question I get quite often, especially when dealing with people moving into retirement or they start planning their retirement. They very often want to know, but can they still apply for bonds? At what stage? Are they too old to apply for a bond? And how do the banks view that? It's something that's very often asked at a late stage in life. So I thought I'd use this episode, a short, quick episode, just to understand how the banks view this, and how you need to go about this. So the important thing to understand is not, when you're reading through documentation, the banks will very often state to say, well, the maximum age of the applicant needs to be 75 or maybe 75 as an example. But the clear distinguishing factor is that the loan needs to be repaid at the age of 75. It doesn't mean that you can apply for a loan up until the age of 75. It means that your bond needs to be fully paid by the age of 75. What is, however, different is that the banks will allow you at different points in time to apply. So there's an age limit up until which you can apply. So that's the first thing. So by when must you apply? And then the second date is at what age does the loan need to be repaid? Now, all of the banks require the loan to be repaid at the age of 75. But I want to just quickly have a look at the latest figures that have been released. So Absa, as an example, will allow you to apply up until the age of 75. So to put that practically, if you are 50 and you are planning your retirement, the maximum loan term that you would get is 25 years. So they would require that your loan is repaid at the age of 75. If you are 70 years old and you are getting a pension and you're getting investment income, you could still apply for a loan at Absa, and they would give you 5 years within which to repay it. So you can see the point that I'm trying to make. You can apply up until the age of 75, but you also need to be repaid by the age of 75. But nevertheless, they will accept your application up until the age of 75. Nedbank deals with it exactly the same. So they say that the loan needs to be repaid by 75. There's no maximum age upon which you can apply, but full payment, repayment at the age of 75. FNB does something different. They say that the applicant must be between the ages of 18 and 65, and the home loan must be repaid by the age of 75. So FNB do not cater for people between the ages of 65 and 75 who need to apply for financing for whatever reason that may be. Now, you may ask yourself, but Rowan, which people at the age of 70 are looking, or at 65 are looking to mortgage a property? You'll be surprised. There's very often people that are looking for investment opportunities. They want to use maybe the other investment earnings or their pension money to maybe do one last property investment venture, and we assist them in unlocking the finance in that way. So just to summarize, Absa, Nedbank take the same view, must be repaid by the age of 75, but there's no a prerequisite as to at which point in time you need to apply for. Just remember that the loan term will be determined by your age and the age that it needs to be paid up by. So at 65 years, you'll have a 10-year loan. Standard Bank have a longer answer, but so their summary is longer, but effectively saying the same thing. They're saying Standard Bank does not have a maximum age limit, as the scoring system will determine the outcome on assessment of the application. Term will reduce depending if it's over 20 or 30 years. So effectively saying the same thing. Needs to be repaid by 75, but there's no limit as to when you can apply. The only bank that's really excluding anybody would be FNB, and it's only between the periods of 65 and 75 years. Otherwise, you can apply as long as you can afford, and as long as you can show the ability to repay, you could potentially get a bond at any point in time up until the age of 75 that needs to be repaid by the age of 75. One of the considerations, though, to keep in mind is the ability to repay that loan after you've stopped working. And I think one of the reasons someone like FNB includes an age limit of 65 for application purposes is, beyond 65, they're asking how would that applicant be able to repay the loan. Just remember, today we're seeing people working a lot later in life, whether they might not be working as intensively as they were previously, but often working beyond the age of 65, with a lot of professions and companies actually forcing retirement upon 65. We're finding that a lot of elderly people are either going into some form of consultation or doing something that they were doing previously, but to a lesser extent, less intensively. And still having the ability to repay a loan into their later years. Again, if you are planning a application at a late point, meaning you're approaching the age of 65, even though the banks will not have any prerequisite as to the age at the time of application, they will still look at the ability to service the loan beyond your employment status. So you can't say, well, hey, I'm 65, I've got 12 months left to work, let me apply for one last bond quickly before I reach 75. The bank may still look at your employment contract and say, well, hey, you've got 12 months left, how are you going to be able to afford this beyond that? And then you're going to have to rely upon your pension and other investment earnings to still prove that you have the ability to repay this loan. Obviously, the closer you get to 65, the more prevalent these discussions become. The younger in life you apply, the less sort of a talking point this is at time of application. But to answer today's question, the maximum period by when you need to have your loan repaid is the age of 75. And ideally, you should be lodging these applications before you reach the age of 65, unless if your circumstances do allow and you have the ability and the affordability to make these repayments after the age of 65, you can still apply for them at a very late point in time. Just remembering that they have to be repaid by the age of 75. Hope you've enjoyed that, and you can see that you still can get access to mortgage loans even in your golden years. If you need that for any reason, or if you want to make use of that, remember that door is open. Hope you found this episode helpful, and maybe has answered one of the questions that you might have been thinking about. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay on top of the latest episodes that we release, and share this with someone that might find this episode useful.